The Cold War was a conflict that happened within the United States and the United Soviet Socialist Republic. Their conflict started not long after World War II. Other conflicts started to take place, such as the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Hungarian Uprising, and other unfortunate events. Competition started to rise up in the 1980s, and the USSR got a new general secretary, also known as Mikhail Gorbachev. He wanted to lead the USSR in a more democratic path, making drastic changes take place. The nuclear power plants that belonged to the USSR were quite cheap and efficient. However, the manual that explains how the nuclear power plants work did not show all the capabilities of AZ-5. When the Chernobyl power plant exploded, the news went all over media, including the United States of America. This frustrated the United Soviet Socialist Republics as they needed a reputation to maintain as they were still part of the Cold War. Not many years after the Chernobyl explosion, the USSR fell as a whole and was known as Russia. Even Mikhail Gorbachev believed it was the main reason their communist form of government fell. The USSR would not realize how expensive and troublesome Chernobyl would be. At approximately 1:23 a.m. on Saturday, April 26, 1986, near the town of Pripyat, Chernobyl reactor number 4 experienced a huge meltdown and a sequential explosion. In the previous day, they performed a test on the power plant. They wanted to observe if the RBMK reactor would go through with limited power flow. Fortunately, things didn't go as they thought they would. After many hours of testing, the power plummets in the reactor, also withdrawing the further rods. 28 minutes after 12 a.m., the thermal megawatts, MWT, decreased from 1500 to 30 MWT. Alexander Akimov, the unit shift chief in charge of the test, says that the test must be aborted, but Dyatlov, as the supervisor, tells him to continue. After the continuous conflict in the control room, Akimov is forced to press the AZ-5 button as the temperature of the water started to rise, reaching the main circulation pumps. The reactor started making rumbling noises, confusing Akimov and the rest of the staff inside the control room. The reactor control panel indicated no water flow and failure at pumps. After 4 minutes, the reactor started reaching 120 times its full power. The power plant's fuel starts disintegrating and all the pressure tubes broke, leading to its explosion. Shortly after the explosion, the air all over Pripyat was filled with dust, power going out all over the city, leaving everyone surprised by the explosion itself. Firefighters immediately go there, trying to reduce the fire as much as they can. Unfortunately, they were not aware that it would cost them their lives.
On the 26th of April 1986, it was decided at Chernobyl to take advantage of reactor number 4's downtime by carrying out a safety test on an emergency core cooling feature. At 1:24 in the morning, an engineer recorded in his diary that the protective system wasn't working. At the same moment, a huge and catastrophic surge in power caused 2 explosions. As fires raged, the core of reactor number 4 was destroyed. A huge cloud rose into the sky, spreading large amounts of radioactive fuel and materials into the atmosphere. Sweden was the first foreign country to find out about the accident when it detected unusual levels of radioactivity coming from the east 2 days later. Ukrainian authorities tried to hide the disaster, which had by that time claimed only 2 lives, when one employee was killed instantly and another died in hospital several hours later. Firefighters who rushed in to put out the blaze weren't properly equipped and suffered radiation poisoning.
April 27th, the day after the explosion, buses began arriving at Pripyat, waiting for the command to evacuate the city.
"48,000 people living in Pripyat were also victims of the ineptitude and secrecy of the authorities. The town was only 3 kilometers away from Chernobyl. Evacuation from Pripyat began a full day and a half after the explosion. Investigations into the accident at Chernobyl revealed both procedural and design errors at the nuclear facility.
People packed up simple things as they believed it would be a brief trip, planning to return. News of the disaster spread over Europe as well as the Soviet Union and Moscow, causing worries to other civilians. And then the Soviet Union left Valery Legasov in charge of the operation to reduce the damage that the Chernobyl power plant had caused.
Внимание! 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 Уважаемые товарищи! Городской совет народных депутатов сообщает, что в связи с аварией на Чернобыльской атомной электростанции в городе Припяти складывается неблагоприятная радиационная обстановка. Партийными и советскими органами, воинскими частями принимаются необходимые меры. Однако, с целью обеспечения полной безопасности людей и в первую очередь детей возникает необходимость провести временную эвакуацию жителей города.
Not long after, a man was chosen as the chief of the commission investigating the Chernobyl disaster, also known as Valery Legasov. Legasov suggested that helicopters drop around 5,000 metric tons of sand, lead, clay, and neutron-absorbing boron onto their burning reactor. Just 4 hours later, the evacuation of Chernobyl started to take place.
Attempts were made to cool the reactor by dropping 4,000 tons of lead and sandbags onto the site.
Valery Legasov was a Russian chemist and was the head researcher of Chernobyl and would prove to be a very motivated and influential man in the USSR. Born on September 1st, 1936 in Tula, Russia, he would live to be 51 and would commit suicide on April 27, 1988. But during the earlier part of his life, he lived not out of the ordinary from everybody else. From 1978 until 1983, he was a professor at the Moscow Institute of Physics and Technology. It seems like Legasov would be the perfect person to be staffed at Chernobyl, smart, educated, and aware of safety precautions that need to be put into place. And that's why after the night of April 26th in 1986, when reactor number 4 experienced a meltdown, he was placed as the chief researcher of the whole project into why it happened. Legasov did many things. He even directly faced the government and spread information they didn't want to get out. He became a hero to some of the public and immediately started to clean up Chernobyl no less than 24 hours after it happened. He was the man that pushed to clean up the harmful long-term radiation effects in the area. Legasov was the start into the downfall of the USSR. But during this time, he experienced lots of criticism and was made fun of by the public. Nobody wanted to believe or listen to what he had to say. Some of this could have come from the government, they could have threatened him, or done something much worse we will never know. In fact, it got so bad that on April 27, 1988, exactly 2 years and 1 day after the anniversary of Chernobyl, he would take his own life.